That's a good first question. I'll let you explain it.
Should we go?
Yeah.
No. All right, folks. Welcome to this afternoon session on personalized medicine. We'll just basically get started. One of our colleagues has not shown up, but we'll go ahead with it. Let us introduce ourselves and a brief kind of intro on what is precision or personalized medicine to us, because this field has a very large remit and could mean very different things to different people. So myself, I'm Z Harun. I'm chairman, general partner of Jules Co. We invest in US, Europe, and in China. We have offices in China and North Carolina. So, and we have, to us, personalized precision medicine has been more towards diagnostics and digital health arena for us. So I'll let my colleagues give their intros and the kind of focus they have in digital health. Precision medicine or personalized medicine. Go ahead, Carl.
Hi guys. So before I start rambling about what I do and what we do at Apollo, maybe to get to know the crowd, who of you has analyzed or sequenced their DNA already? Okay, so a couple of the panelists and one person. Good, so I think we can actually have some value-adding conversations today. So what do we do at Apollo? We are a super early stage investor, so we invest in seed and Series A stage companies in Europe and the US. But aside from that, we also kickstarted a company builder beginning of last year. Our ticket sizes range from 1 to 15 million, and we try to be super operationally active, and that's where my role comes into play. At Apollo, I'm taking care of most legal, financial, and most importantly, venture development kind of projects, because we try to partner up with scientists and professors all across the globe and build breakthrough therapeutics interventions that are focused on anti-aging science. So not just health span extension, but also lifespan extension, even though the first one, health span extension, is the most important one for us. And I'm really excited to be on this panel today because I think precision medicine has the potential to actually kickstart and shift the way we think about our healthcare system, and how I like to call it the sick care system, but we'll get to that later.
So we were told that we definitely need to speak in the mic so you can hear us. My name is Nikki Gainey, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development and Commercialization for Siemens Healthineers. And Siemens is obviously a little bit larger in the healthcare space, and so I specifically look at one business for myself, and that's in ultrasound. My reason for being on this panel becomes a little bit more personal, not just work-related. And oftentimes when we think of healthcare, and the opposite of precision or personalized medicine, right, is the one size fits all. And that is not where, as a patient or as a family member or as a provider or as an advancer of healthcare, we want to be. Most of us have probably been affected by either cancer ourselves or with those, so then using data to personalize the treatment is really where we're looking at for personalized medicine. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, I'm Ted Driscoll, and I'm the founding member of Digital DX Ventures, which is focused specifically on personalized medicine, because everybody in this room is slightly different genetically, slightly different epigenetically, slightly different microbiomically as well. That means that different drugs are going to work for each of you in a slightly different dose or something of that sort. And I think that's one of the key issues of medicine nowadays that doctors are facing, is that sometimes people don't respond to a drug and sometimes they do. And so personalized medicine, I think, is becoming a very important issue in medicine right now, and I think it means that diagnostics are becoming more important as well, because you need to know what drug a person's going to respond to, and that's a key issue. Prior to this, I had started a whole bunch of companies. I ran the team that developed the first MRI scanner in Diasonics, and I've been involved in a whole bunch of other areas as well, mostly in medical imaging, but now I'm focused a lot on genetics and other areas like that.
Hi everyone, my name is Yizhen. I'm with a fund called 11.2 Capital. So 11.2 kilometers per second is the escape velocity from Earth. So we pride ourselves in investing in breakthrough and emerging technologies from that standpoint. And I started my career actually interviewing oncologists on what therapy they would prescribe for which patient type. And that was at the onset of personalized medicine, in a way that moving away from traditional chemotherapy, but more targeted therapies during my time at Roche Genentech. And then transitioning to early stage investing side at 11.2 Capital, I covered what we call the intersection of computer science as well as data and with healthcare and life sciences. So looking at companies that are leveraging data in aggregation, analytics, as well as interpretation of such data across therapeutics, diagnostics, as well as tools, mostly software-based. So yeah, very happy to be here and looking forward to the panel.
So this is more to do from investment perspective in this panel discussion. So I'll kickstart the discussion from the perspective that, you know, a lot of people have seen a lot of new efforts in this arena. They are very good ones. They really show effectiveness in this area. But I think the key issue always as investors is that how is the reimbursement challenge going to be overcome? So what I would like to have my panel take up this question is that in their experience or in their investments, how are the reimbursement challenges being addressed and what difficulties are they seeing in actually adoption and actual payment for these kind of services where benefits are there, but somehow the struggle has not been overcome very clearly by the companies. So Ted, you may want to start off.
Well, I have two doctors as partners, and I'm always calling a doctor whenever I see a startup to find out whether they really need this or not, because I think that's one of the key issues to get it reimbursed is that the doctor needs it. He's facing a problem and he doesn't know what to do about it. So that's one of the things I'm focused on right now is making sure the doctor has better information and knows what to do about it, because that's what he'll get reimbursed for.
Ted, just a question. Have you found that when they say no, they don't need it, that stops your investment?
Yes.
It does, because
Specific.
our front does not, right? Sometimes we feel that if it's important enough, right, and if it's a barrier to care, that somebody will maybe have the change in reimbursement, right? So it doesn't stop us from investing.
Well, one of the problems in medicine right now is that doctors go to medical school and then maybe have gone to medical school 40 years ago and don't know anything about genetics or anything like that. It's happened since. So I think that's one of the things about medical school that we need is the doctor should go back to medical school every 5 years and get an update, because medicine is advancing very quickly.
Go ahead.
Sure. So I think with regards to the topic of reimbursement, it really depends on which product or sector you're focusing on. Diagnostics is very different than therapeutics, as well as digital health, for example. Given the complex health system that we have in the U.S., there are many ways, not many, but a few innovative ways that we can get people to pay for these type of services or products. One success we've seen our fund is perhaps focusing on the self-insured employers who are acting as payers themselves that are taking on risk of their employees' health across disease areas and selling those to products and services such as digital interventions to those employer base have been a pretty exciting success as well as opportunities that I see in the field.
So I think what is really important is, as you said, to distinguish who actually are the payers and what kind of product are you looking at. For most products, I think, and companies in the precision medicine field or personalized medicine field, it comes down to the insurance companies. And insurance companies are only willing to pay for it if they can see an actual, first of all, economic impact for them, and secondly, some kind of clinical trial effort that has been going on. But in order to reach that, that's where I think the problem comes into play. That it's really hard to solve. Is how do you get to that evidence, and who starts paying for that evidence? In my mind, it has to be a group of people, that like us, that kickstarted, and I think that's, first of all, it's like this is kind of the root cause of our job, right? Why we exist, because we take a leap of faith and we jump in the cold water, and maybe it doesn't get through in the end, but if the patient population of, let's say, 10, 50, 500 people makes it, and we actually manage to show an impact, this is going to be a huge business. And maybe that's one way how we can break through.
Yeah, so in our experience, we have seen it in a number of different ways. Sometimes it's the legacy system challenges that really block the adoption of the new technologies into the system. Sometimes it's the awareness of the physicians, as Ted was indicating, that they are not up to speed with how medicine is being practiced and healthcare delivery is going on. And I agree with Nikki also that in so many cases, and I'm a physician myself, my colleagues are not up to speed and how the transition is happening. And you have to see for yourself around the curve of what the practice of medicine would be. So I think overall our experience is also that, but one thing is clear, the payment is not there yet for these services. A lot of the issues revolve around that this field is focused on elimination of mistakes more so, and a lot of systems don't like to give for mistake prevention yet. Although they can see the data very clearly that how this would help the system overall. So I think the jury is still out on that. So moving on from that, as far as your investment focuses are, which indications do you see in the field that are productive, and how that aligns with your own investment philosophies? Ethan, you can take it.
All right, well, I've already invested in a company that can see breast cancer in saliva when it's only 4 cells, and I think that's one of the most important things is early detection. I have invested in another company that can see Alzheimer's disease 8 to 10 years before dementia happens, which I think is also very important because we can diagnose Alzheimer's disease now when dementia has happened, and that means brain damage has already happened. Okay, so I think that's key. I think early detection is very, very important, and I would not be surprised in 10 or 20 years, quite frankly, if basically a doctor takes my saliva and the next day tells me to take a green pill and doesn't even tell me I have cancer, he just kills it. So I think that's what's happening, is early detection is really important in medicine.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I can comment on the therapeutic side. So we have a company, portfolio company, John Notable Labs, who's also here today. What they do is they take your patient sample, let's say you have leukemia and lymphoma, they take the sample from you and then they can combinatorially, using a high throughput screening method, to see which drugs, a combination of drugs work for you for the type of cancer that you have. So it's a very personalized treatment plan instead of following the clinical trial guidelines or treatment guidelines in terms of all comers use this drug. They can help you prioritize. Okay, given that this combination works for your disease, maybe you should try that instead of this all comers approach. We have also another portfolio company called Aranza, which uses patient subpopulation and using omics to determine, okay, given this subpopulation of patients, are there specific therapies that will fit for this subpopulation versus the all-comers approach again. So we're very excited about those personalized approaches that these companies are taking.
I think Ted and I might be invested in the same company. But when you think about the span of healthcare, we'll be looking at same thing. Like, I mean, we've just had this conversation about blood flow. There was a huge study that came out that talks about like the 8 to 10 year predictive indicator for Alzheimer's. I mean, there's nothing like that today. And those are the things that, nothing. And as you look at how do you image for that, right? How do I give someone that information? They need to be able to see into the body. And so those are the things that we're investing in, obviously. But, you know, one of the things that we also want to do is be the partner of healthcare. Because some of the things aren't going to be in our area or our wheelhouse, but you'll need to see it. And so we want to be the person that you go to. So that's where we invest.
So far we haven't invested in personalized medicine company yet. That might be because we've only been around for 2 years. But on the other hand side, it might also be because we look at the field in a very, very narrow kind of way. Because what we try to do is we always try to invest in companies that take a preventative angle and don't treat an existing disease. And that comes back to the point that I mentioned in the beginning. We, for example, wouldn't be interested in a company, maybe different to you guys, where you're sick, you have an acute asthma attack or something like that. We wouldn't want to worry and take care of this patient. What we want to do is we want to start tackling the root causes of the reasons why we age and the reasons why all of us in the end will have to say goodbye. And we want to not just extend lifespan, but extend health span. And how we might be able to do that with personalized medicine, and I think it would be really interesting actually to get your guys' thought on this, is, let's say you go to your doctor's checkup, on your yearly checkup, and aside from your regular routine, you also assess and do a complete DNA sequence. And you also, and then your doctor sees, okay, Harvey, you have this one gene, and this gene is subject to that it overactivates a pathway that then leads to or can lead to neurodegenerative diseases. And then this doctor can, because he has assessed this, can actually start treating me before this disease actually breaks loose. And I think that's one of the, for us, coolest and most promising things in the field, that before you get sick, you can actually start to intervene. And maybe, I mean, why did you guys sequence your genome? Why did you sequence your genome? Why did I? Because it's cheap now, luckily. But secondly, because I think we want to do preventative work.
Yeah, so, the problem that from the early diagnosis and the payer perspective was that yes, you are getting actionable intelligence, but literally the actions that as a physician you can take are a little bit behind the diagnostic curve. So we will know, yes, you can develop something like this. Now, so the payer's perspective was that where is the outcome data that could rationalize that intervention today, 5 years ahead of any disease showing up. So I think this is where a lot of rub has been with a lot of these companies, that you get a lot of kind of predictive data, but what do you do with that? And then if you start to intervene, then the payers start putting pressure that we did not anticipate that we'll start treating the would-be patients in this field also. So a lot of our investments that I've been part of and had advised also, when it really comes down to actual payment process, it becomes quite a bit of a headache to convince the payer population that this is good and it'll be helpful. And again, they are not interested in efficacy, they are interested in effectiveness outcome data, which will take a long time, because if we do never let the disease develop, then How do you know? So that becomes a central issue as far as the negotiations I've seen on actual payment. So.
Well, Dr. Z, I was just going to say, some of the things that we've seen is, just when we were talking about, let's say you do have a predictor for Alzheimer's, what are you going to do? Right? Like now we're just going to image more, and then we've just actually, put the patient into, psychological, barriers that they might not have known before. And so there's a huge push now for health economics. And do we even have the right people to be able to do that? And can we evaluate it appropriately to invest? I mean, we're also a little far behind in that. How do we evaluate and help companies that are able to do this to then be successful, right? Like when we want to invest, is the right way to do it is to have a diagnostic, to then, do a treatment, to give you some health economics help. Like how do we prepare you to do this well? We're still trying to figure that out most of the time.
Yeah, even if you take the genetics issue that Harvey brought up, I mean, just the knowledge that a gene is there is absolutely useless because you don't know what promoters are being methylated, what epigenetics is going on, and what environment influences and what other aspects have gone on with the person that could relate to that. So
when my genome was sequenced, they found a fatal disease in my genome, but it's methylated, it's turned off. Okay, so the fact is, this is the problem. I actually was talking to Mustafa Renati, who's the chief science officer at Illumina, saying, why aren't you also looking at the epigenome as well as the genome? Because it could be that you're seeing a bad gene, but it's not actually active, it's dead, and things like that. So I think that's important.
So another trend in this, obviously, precision and personalized medicine that has pervaded, especially the last 3+ years, is the AI and machine learning. Literally, in the last year, we have seen 50+ companies change their name and put AI in there just to impress us. They are doing AI, and literally, when we ask them what data did you have, 100 patients. So this is like, I mean, literally, they make more of a fool of themselves than anything. So I would ask the panel what size of AI and machine learning there really is productive, because the whole thing about personalized and precision is more data, more accuracy. But where do you see as an investment challenge when these companies come along and they're asking them the moon for everything? So go ahead.
Well, I can tell you my doctor, who does my primary care physician, does my annual physical, she wears a Google Glass. And the Google Glass actually looks at my EMR and comes back and asks her questions to ask me. Cool. So the fact is, AI is already coming into medicine in some ways. I had a grandson that was born 2 years ago, and he had 2 gigabytes in his electronic medical record as he emerged from the womb. He had been genetically sequenced as a fetus. The doctor has too much information now. They need AI to help them in some way or another, and my doctor's already using it. So it's kind of a little bit amazing.
But what I wanted to know is that what challenges as an investor you are looking at when these companies show up, and
they have to be solving a problem.
Exactly, and what kind of value transaction can you see in them?
From my perspective, and I can speak of this, more data isn't always better data, right? Like if it's not actionable, and it has to be clean data, that's incredibly difficult. And depending on what clean, there's so many definitions about how you can actually evaluate the data, and then how you evaluate a company with access to the data, who owns the rights to the data as laws change around data, right? Some of the things that when we look at a company and they say they have access, they don't actually have the right to the data. They think they do, and then you start to get into the details, so contracting around data becomes increasingly important and something that we look at, and it's evolving. I mean, we're trying to figure out how do we evaluate that data. And the one thing that we have often said is, who owns the data is who has the power, but who can actually do something with the data is the one who will advance medicine.
I do want to reiterate on the application part of solving a big problem using AI and machine learning. So one part is there are a lot of publicly available data sources out there, proteomics, chemistry, chemicals, matters, whatnot. But oftentimes they're not the best data, the highest quality data, because they range across different assays. It's not standardized, right? So access to high quality, consistent data is something that the panelists mentioned here that's very important. In addition, beyond just having high quality data, we need to make sure that it's not just a tool or trick that you can apply to healthcare and life sciences and thinking that's going to solve the world. I can just talk about for the drug discovery, drug development standpoint. Predicting IC50 is a very small part of the whole drug discovery development problem challenges that they face. So yes, it's great that you can predict binding of your chemical to a target, but what more can you do beyond that? What additional value add can you bring to the drug discovery development process? You need to solve the biggest challenges, not just a small part of the overall industry.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what Anna said.
Okay. No, I think in our experience also is garbage in, garbage out. So if we don't see the real data that really form the basis of their algorithms, we are not very impressed. Also, the other piece is that please, I mean, I'm so tired of these our entrepreneurs coming in, hey, this is the black box. We think things in there and magic comes out of it, and you know, this is our IP. There's no IP around it, you know. We can find 50 people who can make the same algorithm, give you the same data set, you know, given the same data set. So I think the key issue always is that what's the market need for it? What value can you drive into the system with that kind of AI analysis or machine learning, whichever you want to use. But obviously at this time we are seeing a lot of flux in the sort of image analysis arena, whether it's pathology, radiology. We see dime a dozen of those deals, too many of those deals, and everybody has a perfect algorithm. So I think that's the experience shared. I would like to ask the panel on, at the current moment, where are they seeing real opportunity areas in this field?
There was one question.
Oh, we questioned at the end. So okay, yeah. So
I think for a general statement, right? We want to solve the world's biggest problems. And that's what we want to do. And so like when we think about Alzheimer's, when we think about cancer, right? I mean, I think 1.7 million people were diagnosed in the US, right? Or something. I've put some numbers down here. I mean, it was incredible just in the last year. And then when we look at how many people are not able to finish treatment and depending on the treatment. So, you know, it's just staggering of how many billions of dollars of work days are missed because of disease. And so those are the things that we're focusing on for us.
But I think what is even more staggering is if you look at, and actually I think a lot of people in this conference and all across San Francisco running around in a suit for the past like 2 days are trying to tackle rather small problems. Because, and if you think about it, let's say we managed to eradicate all cancer diseases. And cancer is completely eliminated. And you opened with that, I think, and said, and I think all of us can relate to it, right? We all have somebody close to us that is diagnosed with it or died because of it. But what do you think we would add to our health span if we would eliminate all kinds of cancer diseases? Raise your hands if you think it's more than 5 years. More than 5. More than 10 years. Okay, more than 15? All right, it's actually 3.5 years. So that's not a lot. So what do we, in my opinion, what should we be doing is we should be targeting the root causes not only of one disease, but the root causes of aging as in disease. And we've managed to identify some of these root causes, namely the hallmarks of aging, whether it's senescent cell clearance, the extracellular matrix, autophagy, and these are processes that can greatly be targeted and be helped with the help of not just machine learning and AI, but have to be targeted with precision medicine and actual biomarkers. And I think that's also a really interesting topic of how do we make use of, and coming back to your I think maybe favorite topic of who pays for all of it.
Are you an investor? If you are, you will ask that question every time.
I'm reading a book called Ending Aging by Aubrey de Grey, and he literally is saying in 50 years people can live 1,000 years. Okay, because he says that you can use CRISPR to lengthen your telomeres, to fix your mitochondria, to fix your cells and things of that sort. Now I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm not sure this planet's ready for 50 billion people either, okay, so I think that's a serious problem. I was on a panel a couple of months ago with Elon Musk, and I told him you got to terraform Mars fast. We need another planet, okay? But that's the problem, is that basically aging can be corrected. You can fix all the genomes, various things, the telomeres being shortened and things of that sort. And that's what's scary, is we are going to destroy our planet if we do that. Because we're going to suddenly have 40 or 50 billion people on the planet.
War?
Go ahead.
Is war the solution? Anyway, so you said...
Well, I think you wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on this
Yeah.
because I think it's a very interesting question. But it just seems to be a conundrum, a very strong conundrum between, you know, the ideology of big pharma and preventive medicine. Because big pharma has a vested interest in developing drugs to make us live longer and get sick, live longer and get taken care of. So how do we solve, I mean, is this conundrum solvable? That's the first question, when there's such a big vested interest in big pharma wanting us to live longer, but actually get sick, treat us. So even before we get to who is going to pay for it. So like your early detection's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's almost like the horse is bolted. Right? So isn't the only answer, which is another conundrum, is food and exercise. We all know that good food and good exercise is probably going to help us live longer subject to our genetic makeup. So maybe anyone can comment on what I see as a fundamental flaw in all of this.
Well, I can tell you that it's an interesting problem, basically, but everybody responds to drugs slightly differently. I invested in a company called Assurex that did a GeneSight test to tell me what was the right dose and whether a drug would work for me or not. It told me that Tylenol did not work for me, and I already knew that because I had headaches. Taking Tylenol, it had no effect on the headache. It also told me I was 5 times more sensitive to opioids. And it turned out I had broken my leg skiing about 20 years ago. I took hydrocodone, and I passed out and slid to the floor. Okay, so I am very sensitive to opioids. I think that's the problem with Big Pharma, is that all of a sudden everybody's slightly different. And I wouldn't be surprised in 20 years if I don't go to Walgreens and they look at my genome and make a custom pill for me.
Just to repeat your question, make sure that
Yeah.
the audience hear as well. So the first conundrum you mentioned, that was Big Pharma wants people to buy their drugs, and people only buy drugs when they're sick, versus, well, maybe we should be incentivized in preventing people from getting sick in the first place, right? And that is the kind of the decade-old debate that we've been having for a while in the U.S. health system. No one's willing to pay for prevention. We don't see the economics, the health economics and outcome studies really hard to do to make a case for that. However, I do feel that we're starting to see signs of such restructuring of the health system that we have into a more risk-based, value-based care that the payers are focusing on. So instead of paying for fee-for-service, where you're paying for episode of care, perhaps payers are willing to pay for, okay, I have this patient, you can manage it from end to end. It's up to you to manage all the chronic disease and the comorbidities to keep the patient healthy. We're only going to pay you this amount of money. So perhaps we're going to see more and more innovation that focus on kind of keeping patients healthier. For self-insured employers, they have all these wellness programs such that they don't want employees to miss work, right? Because that's a huge cost for them. And we're starting to see them paying for these programs. And maybe that will shift Big Pharma's mind as well.
Yeah, no, I think money is finite, and we are coming to that resolution pretty quickly. I think the key issue would be that the value-based healthcare would enforce a result-oriented kind of care delivery. So I think the risk shares that have been implemented, Novartis's CAR-T is 600K. If you don't get better, is 0. So the incentive to start dumping medicines on people goes away because they will lose a lot of money if the patient selection is not correct in that regard. So the NICE and AMNOG and other agencies discount the drugs a lot based on value related results post-administration within the system. So there's 40% discount, 20% discount, 60% discount. All of that is coming. Yes, it's not there. We would just start it on ACA and then we are like, I don't know where we are right now in the US with everybody trying to dismantle it in 5 different ways. So, but in other places where the management is a little better in that regard, I think this is all moving. I can assure you we are not there yet, but that conundrum is going to get solved sooner or later, and everybody is going to get smarter. But on the other side, this diagnostic thing is also a problem because I've sat on the panels where the discussion is, okay, this would tell you this. So, okay, we have 100,000 patients walking in with potential cancer-related symptoms. So do we give this test and this test and this test and this test to every one of them? That becomes like, okay, we have already burnt out $3,000 before we even know what's going on with the patient. And then once we know something, then we have to again do something more with the patient. This is where I feel like that I think we need a little bit more sophistication in assessing which patient population would require what and kind of fine-tune that approach. So that's what my experience has been in this regard, in essence.
So historically, pharma had, in its infinite wisdom in the last 20, 25 years, thought of theranostics. So we're going to combine Beckman instruments with a SmithKline therapeutic, portfolio. All of that has failed miserably. They can't get it together. The strategies don't work.
To do something with, it has something to do with the name Theranos.
Well, that's long before there was a
I know. Just say, just not use this word at all. I think it's going to fail anyway. No, this is the issue. And how do you balance that out? Because everybody is selling their companion diagnostic, but companion diagnostic then has to be done on every patient, incoming patient.
Yeah.
So now we have 7, 8 selective drugs, so we have to do companion diagnostics for everyone. And that becomes a big issue as far as the payer population is concerned. And that goes into NICE also. They run the system pretty tight. Their quality scores are so tightly linked to the payments. So they will not pay more than £30,000 a year per patient quality year gained. So again, they've figured out there's not ever increasing amounts of money.
Yeah, and also with the change in the payer system and your covered lives, the insurance companies historically said, well, if you're not going to be in system, who cares? They'll be gone in 3 years. So why are we going to be diagnosing and looking for wellness if we're not going to have that exposure?
Yeah, I agree. But better you guys can comment as you wish. Anybody?
I think the whole pharmaceutical business is going to be much more customized, much more focused. And I wouldn't be surprised, quite frankly, if a lot of the drugs aren't being delivered in large quantities in big boxes to Walgreens, and then it's custom make something for you. Okay? Because I think the idea that we were all taking aspirin of a certain size, okay, just isn't smart anymore, because now we're all realizing we're all personalized, we're all slightly different.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but I think the integration of AI and machine learning is going to be integral to that, because I think 2003 was $3 billion. Now it's $50 for the sequence. So I think we are getting to that point, but it'll take another 10+ years for us to do it.
Not having the Alzheimer's gene doesn't mean you're not going to get Alzheimer's. think it's only like 20% is filial. My question is, you're looking at the human genome, but a lot of diseases have to do with the bio. Are you investing in any companies that will do biogenetics?
It's fine.
Oh, the microbiome.
Well, I can tell you, I know, for example, that Alzheimer's disease is caused because we eat a lot more sugar than cavemen did. Okay, they just did autopsies on a whole bunch of Alzheimer's people who had died of Alzheimer's, and they found blood in their brain, they found sugar in their brains and things like that. So I think that's part of it. And the beta amyloid is actually part of our immune system. So it may be that that's what's happened, is we basically set off our own immune system.
Actually, it's herpes.
Herpes virus. I know herpes virus is also associated with it as well, and that causes the immune system to be hyperactivated and things like that. So there are a lot of things that are causing a lot of the diseases we have. Actually, I got to tell you right now, I've recently been looking at Safeway. I've been looking at what Wonder Bread has in it, for example, or what Right Guard deodorant has in it, and things like that. There are enormous numbers of chemicals in these things, and I'm really concerned that they're doing it so they sit on the shelf and can last longer and we make more money. But the fact is, we're getting these chemicals, okay, and when they go into our stomach and we get acid with them and things like that, they could become very serious. I wouldn't be surprised in a few years if they find out that if you're using Crest toothpaste, you have a higher likelihood of oral cancer or something like that.
But I think we all know that. I mean, we don't really need data to know that a lot of the food that's been genetically modified, it's been sold everywhere.
Yeah, the Nature
including
Bound
Whole
apparently has basically insecticides in it.
Yeah, including Whole Foods pesticides.
Yeah.
But what can we do about that? Because the horse is bolted, and big agriculture, they're even more prodigiously aggressive and making money than big pharma is.
Yeah, but pharma is just not about stopping a disease. It's also preventive. There are genes that are protective genes for a disease. So RAD10 is a Alzheimer's protective gene, and so if you can modulate that signal expression of that gene, then you're doing a positive. You're having a positive benefit from a preventive standpoint.
So coming back to the microbiome question, we have looked at a number of companies. We are looking at some more in depth also. One is skin condition. So basically there's an imbalance of certain bacteria on the skin which was thought to be autoimmunity. It turns out that it's an imbalance of those bacteria on the skin. So I think those kind of opportunities are there where then you can lock the IP into the formulation of those specific strains of bacteria, and that could lead to a more personal, based on each patient's makeup of the certain bacteria, you can go about it. But those kind of very specific microbiome related opportunities are really far in between, where we see
Crohn's disease, celiac disease.
no, I mean, where are they, but where the solution is very nicely tailored and can be really reimbursed well.
They're in diagnostics, right?
Yeah.
That's what we work, right?
So I think we don't see too many. I mean, there's a lot of discussion on microbiome. There's a lot of good data on microbiome and how it can help. But again, this is investment in this arena panel. From that perspective, everybody has to make their own judgment calls on what risk appetite they have. For us, it is very important to make sure that there's a real tight solution and IP is really, tightly held. So that way you can have some sort of a return on that. So those kind of microbiome related investment opportunities, we see a lot, but only one or two really pique our interest in a year. So
We are really excited about the microbiome. Actually, we are an investor in a company called Ubiome, which is a San Francisco-based company. They have a very smart business model that they sell direct to consumer as well as directly to physicians to prescribe their diagnostic microbiome sequencing tool. And today they have probably amassed the biggest microbiome database. And we all know how important that is because microbiome influences your bowel, right? Your IBS, IBD. It's all related. It also influences your immune system. The gut-brain axis has also been discovered. It's a new organ that we just seeing a lot of connection to. And we feel like there's a lot of opportunity in that, actually. But I do feel that what you said, Zishan, about what is the IP, right? Without this big data play, it's really hard to, okay, I have a sequencing tool, or I have an interpretation tool of mapping genome to function, but so does everyone else.
Well, and the microbiome doesn't even stand still. It changes. If I go to a Thai restaurant tonight, my microbiome is different tomorrow as well. And some microbiome things could potentially disable drugs that I'm taking. So I could have a drug that's working for me today and not working for me tomorrow.
So patient privacy issues are not an obstacle for that approach.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's part of the problem is our EMR does not keep track of what food I eat or what I drink or anything like that. All it does is keep track of the doctor's records. Yeah.
EMR is a one instance snapshot. EHR is where we are lacking, which is the electronic health record, which is a longitudinal collection of data. And it's not transportable right now. And hopefully it is, because without that, there is no hope for any of this to actually get implemented.
So we're a Alzheimer's early intervention clinic delivering a model virtually, and we do a self-directed pay. So my question to you is, an investor came up to us and he said, I like your model, come back to me when you have more outcome data. And so is that, what is your come to me when, how do you guys fill in that blank as an investor for your own portfolio?
Okay, so some of this pushback could be just a polite way of saying no to you, so come back, and then they'll just say come back whenever that. This challenge in the things we have invested in is the same as other places, is that even though the product is finished, we have a lot of data, but each site, each institution that we are going to in one of our investments, they are requesting a full-on pilot to show that this works within their system. Especially things like what you are talking about, which is remote healthcare delivery, and in that sense. So I think we are seeing that a lot. And the other challenge we are also seeing is that so you have one solution, there are 5 other people who have other different solutions, and the integration is a problem. So a lot of they love it, but now they have 18 systems working on their platform. They say, we cannot take another one. I love it, but where do we slot this in with this many softwares running of this thing? So I think we have seen both ways in that. If the outcome data alone was the issue, we would have solved a lot of things.
Okay.
So how we go about it is, and I would agree with you, it really sounds like, okay, this is not the right fit for us, because we know quite fast whether this is an asset or a company or a team that we want to invest in. And we've invested in pitch decks that look stellar, like somebody from McKinsey drafted them. We've invested in pitch decks that were over 250 pages long, and it took us over 3 days with 4 people to comb through them, and we were like, this is genius. And the cap table was completely screwed up, but the science behind it was just incredible. So, and then if we actually miss something, but we're still excited about it, we always externally validate it with the experts in the field. And that has been a really great way for us to also recruit in advisors, because if the asset was as promising as we thought, these guys wanted to join on board later. So whether, whatever you're looking at, whether it's an mTOR inhibitor, whether it's a company that's focusing on microbiome, you just look for the experts in the field, ask for their opinion, and if they give the thumbs up and it's really cool, they join on board. And that's how we look at these kind of things.
I'm always going to be like that dissenting voice or something, but to your question was, when someone comes back and says, come back to me when fill in the blank. One of the times I'm going to write a book and it says it depends. Because if I don't want to invest, I'm going to tell you, right? That's not going to be my play, like come back to me. I'm just going to be like, it's probably not a fit, but it might not be a fit today, or I might need more data, or I think it's going to be a fit because we're acquiring something else and this is going to go with it. So my answer is it really depends from if you're talking to me.
I always call a doctor right after I see a startup. And I always try to find out, is this a burning problem for the doctor? Is he seeing a patient like this every single day, or is he seeing a patient every 6 months? Okay, because to me that's the key issue. Is he going to use this test over and over again, or is he only going to use it once every 6 months or so? So I find that is one of the most fundamental problems, is making sure you're helping a doctor make a better decision daily.
I don't have anything to add.
All right. I think we are time out. So thank you very much for the interesting discussion. Thanks to the panel. Thank you, everyone.